I'm going to probably revisit this topic quite a bit because this channel's Rejoin Nature, Reclaim Soul. But it's also, that covers quite a large area of studies and thinking and thoughts and all that sort of stuff. And obviously reclaiming things, reclaiming your soul, your spirit, understanding all this sort of stuff. So I'd like to talk a little bit about neurodiversity and what I call the bridge. Now, I guess, it probably goes without saying I'm not a neurotypical person. And I think a lot of my focus in my life, it's only because I'm getting more aware of these over the last few years in looking at things this way, because I've always, before I had the words and the sort of outlooks that have sort of appeared in the last few years more and more, I just used to muddle by in my own way, sort of trying to find my place in this cosmic universe, without those terms and without such an amount of people sort of being obvious that they're coming out with this sort of thing. Anyway, there's always this thing called the bridge that's fascinated me, and it's almost like, say you've got your neurotypical sort of reality, which I view as sort of functional and everyday stuff. So it's everyday interactions and functionality within the system, the reality of the system. And then the other side, there's a bridge, but the other side of the bridge for the non-neurotypical person, there's all this other stuff going on, whether that's ADHD, ADHD, whatever it is, a mixture of all these things, autism, etc. All these modern terms have been put on it. But there's a thing called the bridge that I call the bridge, and it means that whatever's going on in that, there's a lot of work that goes into the bridge in order to operate in the neurotypical world. And that's why sometimes geniuses can spend their lifetime seemingly operating just in the banal every day, because the amount of effort they have to put in to the bridge and keeping the bridge maintained between those two things is phenomenal. So I'd just like to mention that. That's what I call it. I call it the bridge, and I'm aware that, I would imagine that most non-typical people, they have different relationships with that bridge, and that bridge can be anything from the equivalent of just a basic rope that crosses over that's quite perilous, or it can be non-existent, in the sort of extreme examples, or it's a very ornate, functional bridge, but it needs a lot of maintenance. Anyway, I'll leave it there for now, but I will revisit this topic quite a lot, and go into it more, because I'm 54 years old and I've given this a lot of thought, and thoughts are always changing and honing and building on stuff. So anyway, hope you found that interesting.